Mr. Harrison, I'm being honest with you. 7 days, maybe less. The retinal deterioration is advancing faster than we predicted, and his immune system is failing. There's nothing more we can do. Marcus Harrison stood in the sterile hallway of Massachusetts General Hospital, his $10,000 suit perfectly pressed, his face carved from stone. 7 days. His son, his only son, had 7 days to live. The specialist kept talking, medical jargon, statistics, apologies wrapped in clinical language. Marcus didn't hear any of it. He just stared at the white wall across from him, watching his reflection in the glass, and felt absolutely nothing. Numbness had become his refuge. 2 years ago, when the diagnosis first came, congenital retinal dystrophy with catastrophic immune compromise, Marcus had felt everything: terror, rage, desperation. He'd flown specialists in from Switzerland, Germany, Japan, paid for experimental treatments that cost more than most people earned in a lifetime, built an entire medical wing in his Boston estate just to keep his son comfortable. None of it mattered. Elijah was 7 years old, blind since birth, and dying from complications no amount of money could fix. If you're enjoying this story so far, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. Drop a comment telling me where in the world you're watching from. I love hearing from you. The drive home from the hospital felt like a funeral procession. Marcus sat in the back of his Bentley, staring out the tinted windows as the city blurred past. His driver, Thomas, knew better than to speak. The silence pressed against the leather interior like something alive. Home was a 22-bedroom estate in Brookline, 14 acres, private security, gates that cost more than some houses. Marcus had bought it when Elijah was born, imagining his son running through the gardens, playing in the pool house, growing up surrounded by beauty he could see. Instead, the house had become a medical facility. The foyer echoed when Marcus entered. Marble floors, 20-foot ceilings, a crystal chandelier imported from Vienna, everything cold, everything perfect, everything empty. Mr. Harrison, his head housekeeper Diane, approached with her usual efficiency. The new caregiver arrived an hour ago. I've put her in the staff wing. She has her references and… Fine. Marcus didn't look at her. Where's Elijah? In the sensory room, the night nurse is with him. Marcus walked toward the east wing, his footsteps echoing against marble and silence. The sensory room, built by therapists designed for Elijah's specific needs. Textured walls, sound equipment, temperature controls. Everything calibrated to give his blind son some connection to the world he couldn't see. Through the observation window, Marcus saw him. Elijah sat in his specialized chair, small for his age, his body thin from the illness, eating him from the inside. Dark curls fell across his forehead. His eyes, beautiful, brown, sightless, stared at nothing. The night nurse sat nearby, checking monitors, recording vital signs. Marcus's chest tightened, not with emotion, with the memory of emotion. He used to cry looking at his son, used to pray, used to believe something would change. Now he just watched through glass. His wife would have been heartbroken to see what he'd become. Catherine, dead 3 years now, car accident, sudden, senseless. She'd gone to pick up Elijah's medication and never came home. After she died, Marcus had poured everything into saving their son. Work became secondary. His tech company, worth $4.2 billion, practically ran itself, while he chased specialists and clinical trials and impossible cures. But impossible stayed impossible, and grief had hollowed him out until nothing remained except a man in an expensive suit watching his son die through soundproof glass. Marcus's office occupied the entire 3rd floor of the West Wing. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the gardens. 12 monitors lined one wall, each showing a different room in the house. The cameras had been installed after the fourth caregiver, 11 caregivers in 18 months. Each one came with stellar references, warm smiles, promises to love Elijah like their own. The first one quit after 2 weeks, said watching a dying child was too emotionally draining. The second spent more time on social media than with Elijah. Marcus fired her when he found her taking selfies in front of his son's medical equipment with captions about blessed opportunities. The third seemed perfect until she sold information to a tabloid. Tech billionaire's tragic secret, dying blind son, hidden in mansion. The article ran with photos she'd taken of Elijah's medical records. Marcus's lawyers destroyed her financially, but the damage was done. After that, trust became impossible. Number 4 stole prescription medication. Number 5 accessed his financial accounts, caught trying to wire $50,000 to an offshore account. Number 6 abandoned Elijah during a medical episode because her boyfriend called. Each betrayal carved away another piece of Marcus's ability to believe in people. So he installed cameras, 32 of them, every room except bathrooms, motion sensors, audio recording, a security system that would make government facilities envious. Every night, Marcus sat in his office and watched the footage, rewinding, zooming, looking for the lie, the angle, the moment of betrayal he knew was coming. Control was all he had left. When Diane sent him the file for caregiver number 12, Marcus barely glanced at it. Name, Isabel Reyes. Age, 31. Background, pediatric hospice nurse, 9 years experience. Education, nursing degree, Boston University references. 5. All glowing. Marcus read it like a death warrant. She'd fail. They all failed. Give her 2 weeks before she quit, stole something, or showed her true colors. But Diane insisted. Mr. Harrison, her references are exceptional. She specifically works with terminally ill children. She understands. Fine. Marcus cut her off. But the same rules as everyone else. No improvising, no bonding. Follow the medical protocol exactly. The doctors have made their prognosis clear. Diane nodded. She'll start tomorrow morning. That night, Marcus pulled up the camera feed from Elijah's room. His son lay in his medical bed, oxygen monitor clipped to his finger, IV feeding him nutrients his body could barely process. The night nurse sat nearby, scrolling her phone, doing the bare minimum. 7 days, maybe less. Marcus closed the laptop and poured himself scotch. The $400 bottle tasted like ash. Isabel Reyes walked through the mansion service entrance at 6:55 a.m., carrying a single canvas bag and wearing navy blue scrubs. Marcus watched her on the monitor. Early 30s. Dark hair pulled back. No makeup, no jewelry except a small silver cross on a chain. She moved with quiet efficiency, like someone who'd worked long shifts and knew how to conserve energy. Diane met her in the staff kitchen, reviewed the protocols, handed her the medical binder. Mr. Harrison is very specific about procedures, Diane said. No deviations. Elijah's doctors have established a care plan, and it must be followed exactly. Isabel nodded, flipping through the binder. I understand. The previous caregivers. Diane hesitated. They struggled with the emotional aspects. This is a terminal situation. Elijah has approximately 1 week left. The goal is comfort, not recovery. Isabel looked up. Her eyes were dark brown, clear, steady. I've worked in pediatric hospice for 9 years. I understand what terminal means. Good. Diane stood. Mr. Harrison will be watching. He has cameras throughout the house. Don't be surprised if he appears unannounced. He's protective. As he should be. Isabel closed the binder. When can I meet Elijah? 10 minutes later, Marcus watched Isabel enter the sensory room. The night nurse stood, gave a quick report, vitals stable, no changes, and left. Isabel stood just inside the door for a long moment, looking at Elijah. His son sat in his chair, facing the window he couldn't see. Small, fragile, dying. Isabel approached slowly, quietly. She knelt beside the chair, positioning herself where Elijah's other senses could register her presence. "Hello, Elijah." Her voice was soft but clear. "My name is Isabel. I'm going to be spending time with you." Elijah's head tilted slightly, listening. "I'm going to touch your hand now, okay? Just so you know I'm here." She reached out slowly, placed her hand over his where it rested on the armrest. Not grabbing, just gentle contact. Elijah didn't pull away. Isabel stayed like that for several minutes, not talking, not forcing interaction, just present. Marcus leaned toward the monitor. Finally, Isabel spoke again. "I'm going to read you something, if that's okay. Just a short story. You don't have to respond. You can just listen." She pulled a small book from her bag. Not a medical manual, a children's book. Marcus's jaw tightened. That wasn't protocol. Isabel opened to the first page and began reading. Her voice was warm, expressive, bringing the characters to life. A story about a boy who could hear colors, who experienced the world differently than everyone else, and that was his gift, not his curse. Elijah's head turned slightly toward her voice. Marcus watched his son's face. Something there. A flicker. Attention. Interest. Isabel read for 20 minutes. When she finished, she closed the book. "We can read more tomorrow," she said softly. "If you'd like." Elijah's fingers moved against the armrest. Just slightly, but it was movement. Response. Isabel saw it too. She smiled, not triumphant, just gentle acknowledgement, and stood. "I'll be back after lunch," she told him. "Rest now." She left the room quietly. Marcus sat back in his chair, staring at the screen. That wasn't protocol. The care plan specified minimal stimulation, quiet, comfort measures only, no stories, no engagement beyond necessary medical care. He should call her in right now, remind her of the rules. But Elijah's face had changed. For the first time in weeks, his son looked like he was actually present in his own body instead of slowly leaving it. Marcus reached for his phone, then stopped. He'd watch. That's what the cameras were for. And if she stepped out of line again, he'd end this before she could cause damage. But somewhere in his chest, in a place he'd thought was completely dead, something stirred. Not hope. He'd buried hope with Catherine. But something close, something dangerous. Curiosity. Marcus didn't leave his office for 3 days. He told himself it was work, quarterly reports, board meetings conducted via video conference, strategic planning for the company's expansion into artificial intelligence. But the truth lived in the 12 monitors on his wall. He was watching Isabel. Day 1, she read to Elijah for an hour in the morning and again in the afternoon. Different stories each time. Adventures, mysteries, tales about children who saw the world differently. She never raised her voice, never forced interaction, just offered her presence and her stories like gifts Elijah could accept or ignore. He accepted. Marcus watched his son's face change during those reading sessions. The tightness around his eyes eased, his breathing slowed. Once, just once, the corner of Elijah's mouth lifted. Not quite a smile, but close. Marcus rewound that moment 17 times. Day 2, Isabel brought music, not the therapeutic sound frequencies the doctors prescribed. Real music, a small Bluetooth speaker and a carefully curated playlist. Classical pieces, jazz, acoustic guitar. She played Debussy's Clair de Lune, and Elijah's head turned toward the sound. "Beautiful, isn't it?" Isabel said softly. "The composer wrote this to sound like moonlight. Can you hear it? The way the notes shimmer?" Elijah's fingers moved against his armrest, tapping, following the rhythm. Marcus stood up from his desk, moved closer to the monitor. His son was responding to music, actually responding. The medical team had tried music therapy 8 months ago. Elijah had shown no interest. They'd concluded his neurological deterioration had progressed too far for auditory processing. But here he was, tapping along to Debussy. Isabel noticed. She knelt beside his chair. "You feel it, don't you?" she whispered. "You hear things we don't. That's your gift, sweet boy." She took his hand gently and placed it against the speaker so he could feel the vibrations. Elijah's entire body relaxed. Marcus sat back down slowly, his hands shaking. Day 3, Isabel completely abandoned protocol. Marcus watched her arrive at 7 a.m. carrying a canvas bag heavier than usual. She went directly to the sensory room, greeted Elijah, then began unpacking. Small objects, different textures, smooth stones, rough bark, soft fabric, cool metal. "We're going on an adventure today," she told Elijah. "We're going to explore the world with our hands." She took his hand, so small in hers, so fragile, and guided it to the first object. A piece of driftwood, worn smooth by ocean water. "This is wood from the beach," Isabel said. "Can you feel how the water shaped it? How it's smooth in some places and rough in others?" Elijah's fingers explored the surface. "The ocean does that, takes something hard and makes it soft, changes it over time." She paused. "Kind of like how pain changes us, makes us into something different than we were, not worse, just different." Marcus's throat tightened. Isabel moved to the next object, a river stone. "Cold, right? Heavy, but smooth all over. The river did this one, moving water, constant movement, wearing down all the rough edges." Elijah's hand moved across the stone's surface. His fingers traced its curves. "You're learning the world in your own way," Isabel said quietly, "not through eyes, through touch and sound and feeling. That's not less, Elijah, that's more. You experience things other people miss." She continued with object after object, a pine cone, a seashell, velvet fabric, sandpaper. Each one came with a story, a connection, a gentle reminder that his way of experiencing the world was valuable. Marcus watched his son come alive. Elijah's hands moved with growing confidence. He reached for objects before Isabel offered them. His head tilted, listening to her voice. Once his lips moved, forming a word Marcus couldn't hear through the speakers. Isabel saw it. She leaned closer. "What was that, sweetheart? You can tell me." Elijah's lips moved again. "More," Isabel breathed. "You want more?" The smallest nod. Marcus's vision blurred. His son had spoken. Elijah hadn't spoken in 6 months. The doctors said the neurological damage combined with his deteriorating condition had stolen his ability to form words. But he'd just asked for more. Marcus grabbed his phone, pulled up the medical binder, reviewed the care plan. Black and white. Clear instructions. Minimize stimulation. Maintain comfort. No experimental interventions. Patient is in final stage of terminal decline. Goal is peaceful transition, not engagement. Isabel was violating every single guideline. Marcus should fire her immediately. Call Diane. Have her removed before she gave Elijah false hope, before she made his son's final days more painful with impossible expectations. His finger hovered over Diane's contact. But on the monitor, Elijah was holding a seashell to his ear, listening to the ocean that wasn't there, and his face held something Marcus hadn't seen in months. Wonder. Marcus lowered the phone. He'd give her one more day, just one. The mounting evidence. Marcus stopped pretending to work. For the next week, he lived in his office, sleeping on the leather couch when exhaustion forced him. Surviving on coffee and the meals Diane brought on trays, he barely touched. The monitors became his entire world. Isabel arrived every morning at 7 a.m. and stayed until 7 p.m. 12-hour shifts, She never complained, never checked her phone, never seemed tired. She transformed Elijah's care into something Marcus didn't recognize. Mornings began with what she called sensory exploration. More objects, more textures, more stories. She brought sand and let Elijah feel it slip through his fingers, brought ice cubes so he could experience how solid water became liquid in his warm hands, brought fresh flowers so he could smell jasmine, roses, lavender. The world is full of miracles, she told him. You just have to know how to find them. Afternoons were music and movement. Isabel would play different genres, jazz, classical, folk, even soft rock, and describe what each one made her feel. Then she'd take Elijah's hands and move them gently to the rhythm. Music is just organized vibration, she explained. And you, sweet boy, you feel vibrations better than anyone. This is your language. Elijah's body, so still for so long, began responding. His fingers tapped, his head swayed. Once Marcus watched his son's foot move in time with a Louis Armstrong recording. The night nurse mentioned it during her shift change. His muscle tone is different. I don't understand it. The atrophy should be progressing, but his reflexes are actually improving. Marcus said nothing, just watched the recordings again and again. Evenings, Isabel read. Not children's books anymore. She'd graduated to chapter books, young adult novels, stories with complex plots and emotional depth. She read with different voices for different characters, paused at dramatic moments, made sound effects when the story called for them. Elijah listened with complete attention. Marcus started listening too. He'd pull up the audio feed and let Isabel's voice fill his office while he stared at spreadsheets he couldn't focus on. She was reading The Secret Garden this week, a story about a sick, forgotten boy who learned to walk again, about a girl who brought life back to dead things. The irony wasn't lost on Marcus. On day 8 of Isabel's employment, Dr. Catherine Chen arrived for Elijah's weekly examination. Marcus watched through the cameras as the neurologist conducted her assessment. She tested Elijah's reflexes, checked his pupillary response, measured his muscle tone. Then she paused. Dr. Chen removed her stethoscope slowly, staring at Elijah with an expression Marcus couldn't read. She called Isabel over. They spoke quietly. Marcus turned up the audio. Significant improvement in neurological response, Dr. Chen was saying. His reaction time is faster. Muscle tone is better. He's even maintaining better posture. Isabel nodded. He's been more engaged. Engaged how? Dr. Chen pulled out her tablet, opening Elijah's file. According to the last assessment, he was nonverbal, minimally responsive. But today he turned his head when I spoke. His fingers gripped when I tested them. These are marked improvements. We've been doing sensory work, Isabel said carefully. Music, textures, stories, keeping his mind active. Dr. Chen looked at her for a long moment. The prognosis was 7 days. That was 9 days ago. Silence. I know, Isabel said softly. Whatever you're doing, Dr. Chen said slowly, keep doing it. I'll update his care plan to include your methods. This is... She shook her head. This is unprecedented. After the doctor left, Marcus sat frozen in his chair. Unprecedented. Elijah should have died 2 days ago. The specialists had been clear. 7 days, maybe less. The retinal dystrophy was catastrophic. His immune system was failing. Multiple organs were in decline. But his son was still here. Still breathing, still responding, still alive. Marcus opened a new browser window and started searching. Neuroplasticity in terminal patients, sensory stimulation and immune response, the connection between engagement and survival. Article after article appeared. Medical journals, case studies, research from Johns Hopkins, Mayo Clinic, Stanford. Patients with strong emotional support and mental stimulation show measurably improved outcomes, even in terminal cases. The mind-body connection in pediatric terminal illness. New evidence suggests engagement delays deterioration. Hope as medicine. Psychological factors in survival rates. Marcus read until his eyes burned, until the words blurred together, until he had to accept what the research was telling him. Isabel wasn't giving Elijah false hope. She was giving him real hope, the kind backed by science, the kind that said engagement mattered, that connection mattered, that treating a dying child like a living person could actually extend his life. And Marcus had almost fired her for it. He closed the laptop and pulled up the live feed. Isabel sat beside Elijah's chair, reading. His son's hand rested in hers. His face was peaceful, present, alive. Marcus's phone rang. His assistant, "Mr. Harrison, you have the board meeting in 10 minutes. They're all waiting." Marcus looked at the screen, at his son, at the woman who'd accomplished in 9 days what millions of dollars and hundreds of specialists hadn't touched. "Cancel it," he said. "Sir, this is the quarterly. Cancel it. Cancel everything for the next 2 weeks." He ended the call. For 2 years, Marcus had poured money into maintaining Elijah's death. Medical equipment, specialists who confirmed the inevitable, nurses who kept him comfortable while he faded. But he'd never once fought for his son's life. Isabel had been here 9 days, making $18 an hour, and she'd done what his billions couldn't. She'd made Elijah want to live. The discovery moment, day 12. Marcus woke up on his office couch at 2 a.m. disoriented. His phone was vibrating on the floor where it had fallen from his hand. Motion alert, sensory room. His heart stopped. Elijah's room, middle of the night. Marcus grabbed his phone with shaking hands, pulled up the camera feed. The room was dark except for a small lamp Isabel had brought. She sat on the floor beside Elijah's medical bed, her back against the wall, eyes closed. She'd stayed after her shift ended. She was sleeping there. Marcus's throat tightened. Then Elijah moved. His son's hand reached out from under the blanket, searching. His fingers found the edge of Isabel's sleeve and gripped it. Isabel's eyes opened immediately. She sat up, fully alert. "I'm here, sweetheart," she whispered. "I'm right here." Elijah's lips moved. Marcus turned the volume up as high as it would go. "Scared?" Elijah's voice came through, barely audible, rough from disuse, heartbreaking in its vulnerability. "I know," Isabel said softly. She took his hand in both of hers. "I know you're scared." "Don't want to go." Marcus's hand flew to his mouth. His son was speaking, actually speaking, in complete sentences. "You don't have to go anywhere right now," Isabel told him. "You're here. You're with me. You're safe." Everyone leaves. Elijah's chest hitched. Mom left. Dad left. The words hit Marcus like bullets. "Your dad is still here," Isabel said gently. "He's in this house. He loves you very much. He doesn't come." A tear slipped down Elijah's face. "He watches. But he doesn't come." Marcus slid out of his chair onto the floor. His son knew. Somehow Elijah knew his father was watching through cameras instead of sitting beside him. Knew Marcus was choosing distance over presence. "Sometimes," Isabel said carefully, "people protect themselves by staying away. When they love someone so much and they're afraid of losing them, they hide. It's not because they don't care, it's because they care too much and it scares them." "I'm dying?" Silence. Isabel's hand tightened on Elijah's. "Your body is very sick, yes." "How long?" "I don't know, sweetheart. Nobody knows." "Are you going to leave?" "No." Isabel's voice was firm. "I'm not leaving you, not while you need me." "Promise?" "I promise." Elijah's breathing steadied slightly. His grip on her hand relaxed. "Will you sing?" he asked. Isabel smiled through tears Marcus could see on the camera. Of course. She began humming softly, a hymn Marcus recognized from childhood. Amazing grace. Her voice was quiet, imperfect, beautiful. Elijah's eyes, sightless, but somehow seeing more than Marcus ever had, closed peacefully. Within minutes, his breathing deepened into sleep. Isabel stayed on the floor beside his bed, still holding his hand, still humming. Marcus watched through his screen as this woman, this stranger, gave his son what he'd been too broken to give. Presence, promise, love that didn't hide behind glass. He stood up on shaking legs, his entire body trembling. For 2 years, he'd told himself he was protecting Elijah by keeping distance. If he didn't get too close, it wouldn't hurt as much when his son died. But that was a lie. The truth was, he'd abandoned Elijah long before the 7-day prognosis. He'd abandoned him the day the doctors said terminal, maybe even earlier, maybe the day Catherine died, and Marcus decided grief was safer than hope. His son was dying, alone, asking a paid caregiver for the love his own father was too coward to give. Marcus walked out of his office. His footsteps echoed through the marble hallways, past the empty frames, past the rooms he never entered, past 2 years of hiding. He stopped outside the sensory room door. Through the small window, he could see Isabel still on the floor, still holding Elijah's hand, still present. Marcus put his hand on the doorknob. It had been 63 days since he'd entered his son's room. He'd counted 63 days of watching through screens. He turned the handle. The door opened silently. Isabel looked up. Her eyes met his across the dim room. Marcus took 1 step inside, then another. He crossed the room on legs that felt like they belonged to someone else and knelt beside his son's bed. Elijah's face looked peaceful in sleep. 7 years old. Blind. Dying. Beautiful. Marcus reached out with a shaking hand and touched Elijah's face. His son's skin was warm. Real. Alive. Something inside Marcus shattered. He collapsed forward, his forehead pressing against the edge of the bed, and wept. Not quietly, not controlled. Deep, wrenching sobs that came from a place he'd locked away for so long he'd forgotten it existed. 2 years of grief. 2 years of fear. 2 years of failing the son he'd promised Catherine he'd protect. It all came pouring out. Isabel didn't move. She just sat there, still holding Elijah's hand, giving Marcus space to break. When Marcus finally lifted his head, his face was wet, his eyes swollen. "I don't know how to do this," he whispered hoarsely. Isabel looked at him with gentle understanding. "Yes, you do. You just forgot. He thinks I left him. Then show him you're here." Marcus looked at his son, sleeping peacefully, unaware his father was finally present. "What if it's too late?" Marcus's voice cracked. "What if he dies thinking I didn't love him?" "Then you make sure every moment he has left, he knows differently." Isabel's voice was soft but firm. "You stop watching through cameras. You sit beside him. You talk to him. You tell him everything you've been too afraid to say." Marcus's hands shook. "I don't know if I can. If I let myself hope and then lose him." "You're going to lose him either way," Isabel interrupted gently. "The only choice you have is whether he leaves knowing he was loved or wondering why his father couldn't look at him." The words landed like a physical blow. Marcus looked at Elijah's face, his son, his only son, the last piece of Catherine he had left. Slowly, Marcus reached out and took Elijah's other hand. It was small, fragile, perfect. "I'm here," Marcus whispered. "I'm sorry I've been gone. I'm so sorry, but I'm here now." Elijah didn't wake, but his fingers, those small, perfect fingers, curled slightly around Marcus's hand, and Marcus Harrison, billionaire, tech genius, man who'd built empires and commanded boardrooms, sat on the floor of his son's room and held his hand. For the first time in 63 days, for the first time in forever. He was finally present. Marcus spent the next 3 days beside Elijah's bed. He canceled everything: board meetings, investor calls, the merger his company had been negotiating for 8 months. His assistant sent increasingly frantic emails. His CFO threatened to fly to Boston personally. Marcus ignored them all. For the first time in 2 years, his son mattered more than his empire. He learned Elijah's routine: morning sensory exploration with Isabel, afternoon music sessions, evening stories, and in between, quiet moments where his son would reach for his hand, hold it, find comfort in his father's presence. "Tell me about Mom," Elijah said on the 4th day. His voice was still rough, still quiet, but growing stronger. Marcus's throat tightened. He looked at Isabel. She nodded encouragingly. "Your mother," Marcus began, "was the bravest person I ever knew. She wanted you more than anything in this world. All 3 of you, before we knew there was only going to be you." "I killed her," Elijah whispered. "No." Marcus's voice was firm. He took Elijah's face gently in his hands. "Listen to me. You didn't kill her. Her body had a complication. It wasn't your fault. And the last thing she said before you were born was that she couldn't wait to hold you." Elijah's sightless eyes filled with tears. "Really? Really?" Marcus pulled his son against his chest. "She loved you before she ever met you, and she would be so proud of how brave you are." Elijah cried into his father's shirt. Marcus held him and finally let himself grieve properly, not alone in his office, but here with his son, sharing the weight instead of carrying it alone. Isabel watched from across the room, tears streaming down her face. That night, after Elijah fell asleep, Marcus found her in the hallway. "Thank you," he said quietly, "for not giving up on him, for seeing what I was too blind to see." Isabel smiled sadly. "I didn't do anything special, Mr. Harrison. I just loved him. That's all children need, to know they matter." "You did more than that." Marcus's voice was rough. "You gave him his father back." She touched his arm gently. "No, you did that yourself. I just reminded you he was worth showing up for." The next morning, Dr. Chen returned for another examination. She spent 45 minutes with Elijah, running tests, asking questions, listening to his heart and lungs. Her expression grew increasingly confused. Finally, she stood up and looked at Marcus. "I need to run blood work, full panel, but Mr. Harrison," she paused. "His vitals are stronger, his neurological responses are significantly improved, his immune markers from last week's tests showed unexpected activity." Marcus's heart pounded. "What does that mean?" "It means," Dr. Chen said slowly, "that his body is fighting against every prediction, every statistic, every prognosis I've ever given. Your son is fighting back." Isabel's hand flew to her mouth. "I need to consult with the team," Dr. Chen continued. "Run more tests. But if these improvements continue—" She shook her head. "I don't want to give false hope. Terminal cases don't reverse. But something is happening here that I can't explain medically." After she left, Marcus sat beside Elijah's bed in stunned silence. "Am I getting better?" Elijah asked quietly. Marcus looked at Isabel. She nodded. "I think you might be, buddy," Marcus whispered. "I think you might be." Elijah smiled, actually smiled. "Because you came back?" Marcus's vision blurred. "Because you're the strongest person I know, and because Isabel taught both of us how to fight." 3 weeks later, Dr. Chen delivered news that made Marcus's knees buckle. "The retinal dystrophy hasn't reversed," she said carefully. "Elijah will remain blind, but the systemic deterioration has stopped. His immune system is responding to treatment. His organ function is stabilizing. She paused. I can't explain it medically, but your son is no longer dying. Marcus sat down hard in the nearest chair. How long? He managed. I can't give you a timeline because I don't understand what's happening. But if these trends continue... Dr. Chen's professional mask slipped, revealing wonder beneath. He could have years, Mr. Harrison, maybe decades, maybe a full life. Isabel's sob echoed through the room. That evening, Marcus sat in the garden with Elijah. His son's small hand rested in his. The sunset painted the sky in colors Elijah couldn't see, but Marcus described them anyway. Orange and pink and gold, Marcus said softly, like fire and flowers mixed together. It sounds beautiful, Elijah said. It is, just like you. Elijah leaned against his father's side. I'm not scared anymore. No? No, because you're here, and Isabel's here, and Mom is watching. I can feel her sometimes. Marcus's throat ached. I feel her too. They sat in peaceful silence as darkness fell. Isabel approached quietly. I should go. Long shift tomorrow. Isabel, Marcus stood up. I need to ask you something. She waited. Stay, Marcus said. Not as Elijah's caregiver, as family. Move into the main house. Let us take care of you the way you've taken care of us. Isabel's eyes filled with tears. Mr. Harrison, I can't. Please. Marcus's voice broke. You gave me my son back. You gave him his life. Let us give you a home. I have my apartment. This is your home, Elijah said suddenly. You promised you wouldn't leave, remember? Isabel looked at the small boy, then at his father. Okay, she whispered. Okay, I'll stay. Marcus pulled her into a hug. This woman who'd walked into his house 4 weeks ago and shattered every wall he'd built, who'd taught his son to live and taught Marcus to love again. 6 months later, the mansion felt different. Laughter echoed through marble hallways. Music played in the sensory room, now just called Elijah's room. The yellow nursery with the animal mural became Isabel's suite, filled with her books and her music and her gentle presence. Elijah was thriving, still blind, yes, but alive, growing, learning. He'd started audiobooks on his own, asked questions about everything, talked about wanting to learn piano. Marcus had restructured his entire life. Work from home 3 days a week, no travel without Elijah, board meetings scheduled around his son's therapy sessions. The company didn't collapse. If anything, it grew stronger under Marcus's renewed focus and clarity. But more importantly, Marcus grew stronger. He learned to braid Elijah's hair, learned which audiobooks his son loved best, learned that being present didn't require perfection, just consistency. One evening, as Marcus tucked Elijah into bed, his son reached up and touched his father's face. Dad? Yeah, buddy. I'm glad I didn't die. Marcus's chest tightened. Me too, so glad. Because now I get to know you, the real you, not the scared one. Tears slipped down Marcus's face. I'm still scared sometimes. That's okay, Elijah said wisely. Isabel says being scared means you love someone, and love is what saves us. Marcus kissed his son's forehead. She's right. She's always right. After Elijah fell asleep, Marcus found Isabel in the garden. She stood by the fountain, running now, finally fixed, looking at the stars. Thank you, Marcus said quietly, standing beside her. You've said that about 1,000 times, Isabel smiled. I'll say it 1,000 more. Marcus paused. You saved him. You saved both of us. Isabel shook her head. No, Mr. Harrison, you saved each other. I just reminded you that love doesn't require sight. It requires presence, and you chose to be present. They stood in comfortable silence. Above them, stars scattered across the sky. Around them, a mansion that finally felt like a home. Inside, a blind boy who could see love more clearly than anyone, and Marcus Harrison, who'd learned that miracles don't always look like healing. Sometimes they look like a woman who refuses to give up. Sometimes they look like a father who finally shows up. Sometimes they look like a dying boy who chose to live because someone believed he was worth fighting for. Marcus looked at Isabel. He calls you Tia now, did you notice? I noticed. Her voice was thick with emotion. Good, because your family, always. Isabel took his hand. Always. Inside, Elijah slept peacefully, no longer dying, no longer alone, just a 7-year-old boy with his whole life ahead of him, wrapped in love that refused to let him go. And that was the greatest miracle of all. Thank you so much for watching until the end. If you loved this story, check out the other videos on your screen now. I think you'll really enjoy them. And don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. See you in the next story.